Excited for today's featured guest, Joanna Shakti, the attractive power of love. When it comes to our visions of love, too often we don't successfully attract what we truly desire. In this powerful, raw, and real conversation, you'll find out exactly why you've struggled with love and sex. Yes, I said it, sex. You'll see where you've sabotaged your heart and neutralized passion. Joanne, Joanna, as the founder of Ecstatic Intimacy and the Soul Love Mentor, she inspires anyone who hungers for deeper love and intimate pleasure to find and build a soulmate partnership where the love runs deep and the passion stays hot. So after the introduction, I get to introduce you to Miss Joanna. Welcome, Joanna. How are you?
I am great. I'm so excited to spend time with you. You're just up to amazing things, and thank you.
Oh, I'm so grateful to have you here because we're talking about some of my favorite topics, which is love, intimacy, and yes, I said it, sex. So
yes.
So we're going to get into it. So how did you start ecstatic intimacy? You know, that in and of itself just does something inside the body, even just saying ecstatic intimacy.
Exactly. And it's that very thing that I couldn't feel, I couldn't experience was really how I got here. And the short, long story is heart of growing up in the heart of the women's movement in the 70s. Being one of the first divorced families on the block and all of the conditioning that I got about love, about men. I had a grandfather who was a Lutheran minister and I grew up conservative in the Midwest. So mix all these things together with insecurity. And I ended up with an electrical engineering degree and an MBA working in the oil and gas and high-tech industries of the good old boy network of Houston, Texas in the 90s. And I was proud of outmanning the men, but I couldn't have an orgasm and I couldn't figure out what was wrong with all the men and why won't a man meet me? And then the wake-up call that the day I sat on the floor and went, oh, this masculine feminine energy thing. My jaw's on the floor and I'm hearing these words, which of course I understood masculine and feminine sort of. But I had no idea how they really applied to me. And I certainly had no idea why they made me successful and got me promoted all the time, but also made me non-orgasmic and lonely and judging all the men.
And who told us turn it off, right? Who told us how to turn the switch and not bring that energy home and in the bedroom?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the biggest challenge that men and women who are heterosexual, it shows up in our same-sex relationships too, but our heterosexual relationships, this equality that, you know, we're supposed to be equal, they're supposed to be the same, where you can ask me out, I can ask you out, you know, you can initiate sex, you can put me up against the wall, and I can do the same. And then, as there was a New York Times article years ago, do equal marriages have less sex? And the cases, yeah, exactly. We neutralize the chemistry, we neutralize the spark, and it's like, not so interested.
That doesn't give us the warm and fuzzies. So
it doesn't give us the hot and happy. It doesn't give us the warm and fuzzy.
and no endorphins going off.
No, not at all. And then we're like, you know, the men are like, where are all the, you know, or I'm sorry, the women are like, where are all the strong men? And the men are like, no matter what I do, it's not enough. And then I'm trying to be the good guy because we got all this conditioning of, you know, don't be that guy.
Yeah.
Don't be too assertive. But now, why won't you show up? And we're so frustrated and disconnected. And
how do you help us get reconnected? I mean, I'm talking about, I loved when I read about getting the relationship that we want, that soul love, intimacy, which is different than sex, to get us to a more rewarding sexual experience and just love life all together.
Oh, totally. So I'm going to work backwards in this because I put it in, the engineer in me brings a little bit of structure to this, but it makes it a really repeatable path for people. Because where we want to go is what I would call the ecstasy. I'll even go as far as say ecstatic ecstasy. It feels like life is amazing. And we might even have this idea of divine union. Like, where does one begin and where does the other end? We have best evers. In life, we have best evers in love. We have best evers in our lovemaking.
Best evers. I like that. Wait a minute. I like that. To have the best evers. Oh my gosh. I love it. Okay, keep going. I'm sorry. This is just feeling good to me.
Well, that's the whole thing is, how does life feel good? Not just from the feminine. Like, the feminine, we can feel it, but our masculine beings, like, they want it good too. And so, but to get to that ecstasy, the part is two whole sovereign beings coming together in partnership, ecstatic intimacy. Into me you see, and I'm willing to let you see me in the good and the not so good, the pretty and the not so pretty, the powerful and the vulnerable. And so it's, how do we come together? And oh, by the way, if we've got a soulmate relationship, if we've really come together soul to soul, well, it's not that, oh, it's all going to be rosy and we are never going to have an upset. No, soulmates are here to evolve our souls. So we're going to get into those crunchy moments where we don't understand each other, where there's the conflict. But if we know how to work with that conflict, if we know how to speak consciously and see ourselves intimately, conflict becomes communion. And that strengthens and deepens the relationship. You're muted.
Conflict becomes communion, which is so counterintuitive because we think conflict is cancel.
Yep.
Done. I'm out.
You'll never get to ecstasy if you do cancel, I'm out. And that's one of the biggest problems. People go on repeat with their relationships. And then it's like, wait, I got the same, it looks different, but I got the same issues.
Yes.
When we learn how to go through those challenges, the ecstasy that starts to show up, and it truly is. Like I like to say, from the boardroom to the bedroom and everywhere in between. But who's showing up to navigate that conflict is the first part of the journey. So we started with the ecstatic ecstasy. We've got ecstatic intimacy in the middle. It begins with ecstatic authenticity. And that was the wake-up call that I had when I was talking about, like, I learned these masculine, feminine things, because in my corporate world, and I brought it home in my relationships, and I brought it into the bedroom, is that I didn't know who I was. And the imagination that there might be feminine, I was in total resistance to that. Feminine is weak and pathetic, and she gets taken advantage of, and she's not respected. And oh, by the way, she doesn't get asked out. And oh, by the way, she doesn't get to have the pleasure that she deserves. And when a masculine man is in relationship, he actually needs to be needed. Not that we need to be needy, but they want to contribute. They want to offer. And if there is no place for us to receive, or on the flip side for our men, if they're not confident and trusting that they have something to offer. So the first part of it, the ecstatic authenticity, I know who I am. I embody my authentic masculine or feminine energy. I stand for who I am, and I can express my needs, my wants, my desires, my turn-ons, my turn-offs, my boundaries. And through that, when I show up whole and trusting self and being self, then I can attract in an amazing partner who will do that soul-to-soul dance.
The soul-to-soul dance, but only when I show up whole.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. Not perfect. Some people hear that and they think perfect. I got to have all my shit together. No. No, I can come messy. And we fall in love with our humanness.
Yeah. Yeah. And the soul to soul, we fall in love with other humans who are flawed, right?
Exactly. But it's being willing to be in that quote flawedness. The place where we actually trust love is the place where we are willing to let ourselves be seen. This is the foundation of intimacy. Is first, into me I see.
Yes.
I'm willing to see all of me, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we all got it. We all got our patterns. We all got our things.
Yes.
And if we're willing to let ourselves be seen in all of our things, that's the first moment that real love becomes available. That's the first moment that we'll actually trust love.
Wow. But we have to have a safe place to do that.
Totally.
Yeah.
But you know where the safety starts?
Oh, Joanna.
But if we don't trust ourselves, we'll do things. We will twist ourselves into pretzels, settle and sell ourselves out because we think that's the only way we're ever going to get and keep love.
Wow.
And that's self-abandonment. And there is no way we can have intimacy and ecstasy if we are abandoning ourselves.
Oh my gosh. That is so incredible. That so that the wholeness and the acceptance and the safe place starts with us first. Because how often is it we're looking for it externally? We're looking for it from our partner. We're looking for it, every place else.
Yep.
But here.
Yep. And, so if we get, we'll take it all the way into the bedroom. Like it's true, like from the beginning of the first connection, first date, we can start twisting ourselves into a pretzel at that point, but now get into the bedroom. And so feminine beings, we want our masculine men to make us feel safe.
Yes.
And I will say first that I was one of these women. But how many times I said yes because I wanted them to love me. I didn't want them to leave.
Yes.
I wanted affection, whatever it was. I wanted affirmation. And that was the first place that I wasn't safe. Had nothing to do with him.
Wow. And intimacy. Again, seeking it externally. Oh, okay. In order for us to be get in that oneness and have that experience, we have to do this. But wow.
No, it's two whole independent beings. Not that we can't be interdependent, but we have to be whole on our own. And it's those two whole beings that then can come. So there's the individual one and there's individual two. Now we can come together and we can have that soul to soul relationship, the heart to heart, the body to body, but it's two sovereign beings. Then when it requires sovereignty to have unity. If I could do an infinity loop, maybe it's better if I do it this way. If I do an infinity loop with my fingers, that it requires sovereignty to have unity. But that's when we can now be in that infinite expanding dance of passion, pleasure, and love.
Wow. And I can attract it. I can't even bring that into, I look at it and tell me if I'm wrong, like an energy. I can't even bring that energy into my orbit. We NASA landed on Mars, right? And they talked about the 7 minutes of hell. And silly me, I'm thinking, wow, is that a relationship or what, right? getting to that place with ourselves to be whole, so that when we do the dance, we're at a place where I'm safe with me, I'm intimate with me, and so I can now do the dance with another whole individual.
Yes, I can now reveal all of me in this dance with another person. And it's like when I work with my singles, they're like, well, I just got to get out there more and I got to find the right guy and I got to do the right thing. But it's not working because exactly what you just said, Dr. Lisa, is that we're not being that energy. When we be the soulmate, we can attract the soulmate. It all starts with the energy within us. And then the magic, oh my God, when we get into alignment with this, the stories and the ways that it shows up and what becomes possible is mind-blowing.
Oh my goodness. There's a saying that I like to say, being the church girl that I am, when something is so good, I say, pass the plate and give the benediction. What you just said was pass the plate and give the benediction.
I love that.
So before I can even attract it, I have to be it first.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
So I have to date me, like me, be intimate with me first before I can even attract that whole individual into my space. So no matter how much eHarmony I do, no matter how much Match.com, no matter how many COVID dates, it doesn't
matter how many swipes.
No matter how many candles, no matter how many prayers, all of that, until I am a whole individual and have that energy that is radiating around me, can I draw that in?
Yeah.
Wow. Because I will draw in, but I will draw in what I am.
Yes. When I first work with somebody, if they're single,
yes,
I will say, you don't have to do this, but my suggestion is give us 4, maybe 6 months of don't date. Now, if the divine drops them on your doorstep, then you need them in the process. But to stop the seeking and to go within, but literally 4 to 6 months will change everything. And we've spent decades going round and round trying to figure out why it didn't work. And if we'll just stop for a little bit of time, we transform our entire experience of life, literally. And who shows up is incredibly different.
So I want to pop up and just make mention that I have Joanna's website here, ecstaticintimacy.com. Across all the social media platforms, you can look for her as well, because you mentioned for the singles, of which I am one. But what about those that are already coupled? They are already in relationship, they're already married, and they may be thinking that there is no such thing as ecstatic intimacy at this point, at this stage of the game. What advice do you have for them?
Oh, I love that question. And here's what happens. So even with the couples, like, it's still the same journey that we just talked about. We have to have authenticity in order to have intimacy, and we have to have that intimacy in order to have the ecstasy. So it's the same path. It's simply, but the key, so I want to answer 2 pieces to your question. It still starts with self, because the reason that we're disconnected, the reason that we're in the friend zone, the roommate zone, we're great at raising the kids, but we're just not doing it anymore. We're not really interested. And, maybe we're good friends. And I've worked with a lot of couples that even the friendship is challenged, but we're trying to stay together for a myriad of reasons. So first of all, we got to get honest. We got to get honest with ourselves. And then we got to get honest with our partner, because that conflict becomes communion. Most of those couples had no idea how to deal with conflict. And I like to describe it, in the beginning of the relationship, we've got this big area rug. It's taken up the whole room, and the rug's nice and flat. But then there's this hurt, and then there's this disappointment, and he didn't do what he said he was going to do. And then she's been nagging, and we end up having all of these things, but we don't know how to navigate the conflict. We don't want to be the bad guy. We don't want to stir it up. God, we don't even want to deal with the upset. So we start sticking it under the rug, and then we'll stick that thing under the rug, and we'll stick that thing under the rug. And then pretty soon this big area rug's got this big pile. And one of us is standing on one side and one of us is standing on the other side. And we're trying to look over that pile of unspoken crap and say, do you want to have sex tonight? Yeah, no, we're not even asking. And then, and then there's the point where it's like, I don't even know if I'm in love with you anymore. Like, we can't even touch. When it gets really bad, we're having a hard time touching the love anymore. And so can you get back to ecstasy? Absolutely. And can you do it without being honest? No. And do you have to go through every upset? No. But when you start going through some of the big ones, the rest of them will fall away. But it is cleaning up what you didn't do along the way, and then learning, because here's the good part. Once you learn how to clean out what's under the rug, you'll never put anything under it again.
Oh, so I want everybody to hear that it is possible. That's what you just said. It's not impossible. It is possible. But now, what about scenarios where both people may not be working at it? When one person doesn't, I'm in various support groups. When one person doesn't want to get the help, and they're not, they don't care about what's under the rug, that there is even a rug.
Yep.
How do you encourage someone in that scenario?
So there's two things. I work a ton with where only one partner is willing. Only one partner is in enough pain to be able to look at it. And for whatever reason, that's become kind of this little niche. And here's the interesting part. When one changes, the dynamic must change, because we're not doing the same dance anymore. When both people are sticking it under the rug, when both people are willing to be in the pain, then nothing changes. When one's willing to get uncomfortable, that shifting of self, where we were talking about the energy with the singles and attracting, when I change my energy, the dance between us must change.
Wow.
If it's a masculine feminine dynamic, which shows up so often, if I become more feminine, or I work with a lot of men, if they start to show up in that presence,
yes,
all of a sudden she's like, wait a second.
What's going on?
What's going on?
Yeah.
What's going on? So it totally changed the energy here. This dance has to change.
Oh my gosh. So it is possible. One person changes the energy and the same thing happens, and you can stay in the relationship, heal yourself, thus healing the relationship.
Yes.
The conflict becomes communion.
Yes.
You start experiencing more best evers.
Yes, ma'am.
And you have moved to ecstatic intimacy. And by default, you've done these various steps, as you mentioned, as the engineer, the process. So by default, you have built a house with good sex.
Yes. Yes. And it's this house and it's the shared house. Yes. What was that? Whoa, did you feel that? Oh, yeah.
I love it. Oh my gosh. So taking us through the steps, it is possible for us to have that soul love. It is possible for us to have soul love. Talk to us then about soulmates. Do you believe in soulmate, or what is soul love? So that can help clear it up for some folks.
So when I describe soul love is that love that is part of our essence. It's part of when we talk about oneness or union. Like, soul love has many expressions, one of which is romantic. And that it is, I want to say, it's like the love that is everything. And when we talk about soul love, my belief is that we are human and that we are divine simultaneously. Yeah. And it is that love, the reunion. When we talk about self-love, it's actually coming into divine love with self, the unconditional love with self, and the union with the divine. So when we can bring that kind of loving to a romantic relationship, and both souls, like if I have this little acrylic diamond, it's like the divinity in us is like this bright shining diamond, but it gets covered over, and we do things to try to make ourselves lovable. And yet when we get into this soul to soul or soulmate love, there is a reason that these two souls came together. And very often it's to push each other's buttons so that we can take the lid off of our hearts. We can take down the walls. We can open up our brilliance, because being whole isn't just about being a whole partner. It's actually giving everything that our soul, there's a reason that each of us are on this planet. and to live that fullest expression of our soul. That's our contribution to humanity. And our soulmate relationships bring us more into that expression. And so it's why conflict is precious. It's sacred, because it's through that that we see our shadow. It's through that that we see the mud on the diamond. And we become more of who we are meant to be in the world.
So that's to help us become all that we are designed and created to be.
Yes.
And so that soulmate is a support. It's like a support.
Yes. It is divinely designed to help us do what we need to do.
Wow.
To be the fullest self. And in the process, we get to have these extraordinary experiences.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. So for singles, give yourself 4 to 6 months to do some work. Get in contact with Joanna at ecstaticintimacy.com. So do you do group programs? Do you do one-on-one? How do you help us do this work?
Oh my gosh. And primarily it is in a group environment. I do work privately with individuals and couples as well. And there's something about the group environment, because when I bring together a whole bunch of women and a whole bunch of men, a whole bunch of masculine beings and a whole bunch of feminine beings, it's really different than your partner or your ex-partner telling you what you did wrong. But if I can say to the masculine men in the room, this is what matters to women, and they've got 10 or 15 or 50 women saying, this is what turns us on. This is when we get scared. This is how we speak. And they're like, oh, it's not just my wife being a nag, or it's her emotional stuff that she's, and the same thing where I can say, men want to make you happy. And women are like, no, they're screwing up. And I'm like, no, they're really trying. And I can take that group of men, and all of a sudden women's eyes go, whoa. Wow. I never knew. So there is a power through weekend retreats and through ongoing community where we can see if we're going through a man stepping out of the nice guy zone, yes, into his authentic masculine, or a feminine being who's been that powerhouse like I was, actually being able to receive and enjoy and be courted. So it's through that recognition in community that, again, whether that's for a couple of hours, for a weekend, or over a course of time, we can learn so much with each other and practice.
And so then something else came to mind. Is this age restrictive? What have you found in terms of, does age matter for someone like myself who's 50 and older, or does it make a difference?
I was just talking to a gentleman in his 60s this morning. I was saying to him, it's so funny because he was asking a little bit about this, and I said, I have people in their 20s, and not currently, but I've worked with people in their 80s. So the 20-somethings that can figure this out before they have to go through so much pain. Yeah. And I had this 80-year-old gentleman at one point connected with and actually got into a relationship with a late 60s-year-old woman. And she was on her death journey. Wow. But the two of them, even though he stepped in, even knowing she was not predicted to be here long, and I got the privilege of spending time with those two beings, and he had lost his wife and she had been through relationships, and the two of them got to be like the most, it'll bring tears to my eyes actually, because in sitting with them and seeing the extraordinary joy that they got to experience, not for a long time, yes, but the quality of it, to say, I had no idea
that this was even possible.
Was even possible. They were like two little kids, including in the bedroom. The best sex of their lives.
So it is possible.
It's totally possible.
Viewers, listeners, it is possible that 80 and 60 can have the kind of magic and ecstatic intimacy that we are talking about today. Some of us may not have had it and we're 50, and some of us may not have had it and we're 30, wherever you find yourself along the journey. Joanna, wow. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I believe the information that you shared will be so enlightening. And definitely, again, I want individuals to reach out to you to work with one of your groups so that we believe we have a lot more time on this planet, and we want it to be good, and we want it to be in a good soul love relationship. So before I let you go, you share so many nuggets with us. Is there one nugget that you'd like to share with us in closing?
Intimacy. Into me, I see. Into me, you see. And then into me, you are. That vulnerability, that risk of getting intimate, of being vulnerable, is the most precious thing we could do on the planet for ourselves, for each other, and truthfully for our world. That risk is worth it. It might be scary, but I stand that there is nothing more powerful that we could do than be intimate.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh my gosh. As I promised you, another amazing guest. Please do your best to reach out to Joanna. She has some great tools, the best evers, and conflict is communion. Oh my gracious. To experience that level of intimacy, and into me, I see. Thank you all so much for joining me today on The Blueprint. As usual, we are here to help you design your life's vision and goals one episode at a time. I look forward to seeing you next time.